And this moves us to the other thing, that this would have been worse if the government didn't build that social safety net that is JobKeeper. Now, again, you can't win on the left, you can't win on the right. On the left, it's not good enough. On the right, it was way too generous. But the result is, if we didn't have this, then guess what would have happened? The arse would have absolutely fallen out of the economy to such an extent that we would be talking about a recession that was way longer, way deeper, with way more people unemployed. By putting people into, for want of a better term, a sort of economic hammock, and then pull down the restrictions as fast as possible, that's how you get the jobs back and you rebring demand to the economy. If you let people just swing and go onto the unemployment queue, then the distance from the unemployment queue back to a job is even further than the one from the hammock to work. Pretty simple, okay? But there are so many people who are pushing their own barrow, saying, look at me, I was always right about all of this. We should have never had any restrictions. We should have had more. Everyone should have been sent a cheque for $5 billion. Now, one of the worst examples of people who always come forward and say that the JobKeeper system should be expanded are the people who are in state government. You see, state governments are the ones who decided to keep our lockdowns going. They are the ones who keep the borders up, but they are not paying the welfare bill. They're not even paying the economic bill at this stage. That's all being done by the federal government. So on the one hand, they want to turn down, lock everything down and say, got to wait another week. Oh, only 25 people in hospital. Oh, maybe wait another month. We'll fine people if they turn up. If you had 5 people over to your house in Sydney this weekend, if you had a 6th person there, they will fine you. A few hundred people marching for Black Lives Matter in the middle of the city, not one fine issued whatsoever. So forgive me if I don't think that their attitude is particularly scientific when it comes to what behaviours are and aren't allowed. But one of the ministers out there, Victor Nominello, out there saying that we need to make sure the JobKeeper is extended and doesn't finish up in September, because if it finishes up in September, the economic consequences will be dire for a place like New South Wales. There is one solution and one solution only for the Australian economy. Pull the borders down, get rid of all of the bans everywhere. 26 people in this country are in hospital. 26 million people live in this country. Now, I have desperately, for a few days now, been trying to ask the state health departments a question they do not want to answer. They fob us off with the too busy, we'll get back to you later, here's some gobbledygook answers, here's the press release we released yesterday. We know that there are a few hundred active cases that are currently in Australia. We also know that there are thousands of people who are currently in quarantine around Australia because they are Australians who have flown home from overseas. So you would think that there's a pretty simple question here. How many of the current active cases are active cases of people who have coronavirus but are currently locked up in hotels after coming home from overseas? We have been in contact for multiple days with the health departments of New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria. Can they give us an answer? No. They can't tell you. They've got an overall number, but apparently it'll take 3 days for us to get a breakdown of how many of the active cases are actually people currently in hotels. And when I get bullshitted to, not by one, but by 3 different governments, whose PR machines are desperately trying to throw the other way, it starts to make me think, what do you reckon the chances are that the majority of active cases in Australia are currently people sitting in hotel rooms who are never going to leave those hotel rooms until they're either coronavirus free or they have to go to hospital? Because if that's the case, then there is absolutely less than zero logic for the borders to still be up and the restrictions to still be in place, because the people who have the virus are currently in quarantine. I look forward to the health departments of New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria yet again being offensive to the people who work on our program, yet again trying to give us the runaround. I look forward to the ministers pretending to say, oh yeah, it's just the fat bloke on Sky News, who cares? This is the heart of the logic. I want to know as soon as possible, is it 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 60%? What is the number of current active cases in New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria that are currently in hotel rooms and not going anywhere, but the active numbers are still being used to justify destroying businesses around the country at a time when the recession is biting hard?